Peace. Anybody who come across this video, grace and mercy be with you from our Father in heaven, and his name is Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya, in the name of his beloved Son, my King and Master, the Christ Yeshua, right? And I pray that the Holy Spirit and wisdom itself would touch your heart and your life and your mind, right? So what I'm going to bring forth today is very imperative. But first, I do want to give all credit, glory, and honor and praises to the Father. And his name is Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya. That's I am that I am in Hebrew, right? And to his beloved Son, my beloved King and Master, as I said, the Christ, right? And peace and blessings and honor be to the Holy Spirit, the great Holy Spirit, right? The Ruach Kadash, right? Anyways, the purpose of this, as of yet, I don't know what the title is going to be, but if you see it, then you know it and you understand it, right? And some of the key points that I want to bring out and highlight to you with this information is the fact that, right, giants existed, demons exist, and fallen angels exist and are moving around, right? And they bear influence, sway, and hold a tight grip on a lot of people, right? Now, I believe it's a common misconception, due in large part to the propaganda that Hollywood pushes through their horror movies and such like this, right? Making it seem like demon possession is something that is very almost like mythical, like you gotta be like grotesque, you know, be stuck up on the roof with your neck spinning around, you know what I'm saying? When that's actually very far from the case, which I'm about to explain to you, right? And I believe that this information, Most High willing, will help to set a lot of people free, right? Because even Christ said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, right? And this information has done that for me, right? So we're going to identify these forces and figure out how we can combat them as well, right? Because they do exist in the earth, and they are here, and their power is becoming more evident and prevalent. And as we can all see, even you might know some people who refuse to attest to that fact, but I think that's just because fear pervades their hearts and minds and gets the best of their spirit, right? And they don't want to look some of these truths in the face, right? But I would ask that you share this video so you know, we can all you know, acknowledge what the true what our reality is, right? And the fact of the matter is that we live under heaven, under God, on this earth and plane, and there's a lot going on that we don't understand, and so be it. But we do have scriptures like these to enlighten us and to guide us and to strengthen us even against our adversaries, right? So, right, let's get into it. The first scripture that we're going to is Isaiah 33:6. And it says, and please, if you have a Bible, follow along with me. Grab a pen and notepad and write some of these scriptures down, right? So that you could go back and reference them and study them, right, more thoroughly, right? Now in Isaiah 33:6, it says, "And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times," right? Wisdom and knowledge. Really, the understanding of wisdom is the Holy Spirit, and it's going to lead and guide us and strengthen us to walk steadfastly in the way of righteousness. And righteousness is following God's law, statutes, and commandments, even which Christ bade us to do, right? And knowledge, right? Knowledge is key. Like, knowledge is power, as they say, the old adage or whatever, right? So these things are going to be the stability of our times, right? And the strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure, right? This is gonna uphold us, right? But let me tell you why a lot of people in the earth, because they lack wisdom and knowledge of things of the spiritual nature, are destroyed, or just in general, right? They don't know how their enemies work, right? So Satan gets the best of people, unfortunately, and then he's able to control them, right? And we're starting to see that more and more these days. People are impatient, angry, thoughtless, haughty, unchaste, just wicked, evil against parents, fornicators, all manner of lawlessness, right? And that's why, the education of the law and Christ is imperative, because as we said, wisdom and knowledge is going to uphold us and be the stability of our time and the strength of our salvation, right? Now look, if we go to Hosea chapter 4 at verse 6, it says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy power, of thy God, I will also forget thy children." All right? You won't be a priest, and you won't have any power in the earth, and you'll be destroyed because you lack what? Knowledge, and you forgot the law. You forgot the way of life, right? Moses gave the children of Israel an option on the mountain. He said, "Choose ye this day," right? Life, right? Because the way of the world is death, lawlessness. You think it's some form of freedom and all this, but you're really killing your spirit. The richest people, right, are the most miserable. People that don't know God always have a hole in their chest and feel unfulfilled, right? They may be successful in terms of the world, right, but they are spiritually devoid and poor and don't have anything to uphold them, right? So people turn to all manner of things, right, in sin, and are bound and chained to it, and they do the things that they really hate, but they don't possess the knowledge to overcome their vices and live in peace and to know the Father or higher, right, who gives peace, right, and sound mind, temperance, discipline, and all the fruits of the Spirit that we can enjoy, right? And all of this comes from the fear of him, which is contained in this book, right? So draw nigh unto God, and he'll draw nigh unto you, right? Now look, with that being said, right, since Satan's able to get the best of people, it tells us in Ephesians 6 and 12, right, that it says Ephesians 6 and 12, right, and all these verses are King James Version, of course. It says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places," right? So we got to understand that this battle isn't completely physical, right? There's forces, powers, and dark entities and people, right, and governments and powers that are aligned in high places, that are aligned with these powers and draw their power and influence from them, right? All these fallen angels or little god's a little g, right? And demonic forces, this is where they draw their power from, right? So look, you're on one side or the other, and that lukewarm, being in the middle, that civilian, you're gonna get chewed up and spit out, right, by both sides, right? Right, so we're not wrestling with flesh and blood here, and it's imperative that people understand that, right, so they can they're not overcome by these dark forces, right? And these dark forces, right, Satan and his armies are seeking to take your soul to the depths of hell, right? So they'll lead you with the deceitfulness of sin and your pride and everything, and help to overthrow you, so that at the end of your life you're going to be standing before God, and he's going to pull the lever on you and send you straight to the depths of hell, right, with these dark entities whose judgment that was originally ordained for, because they came here, like what we're going to find in a minute, to deceive and to destroy mankind. So if we give our affection and power over to these beings, then they're going to get the best of you and they're going to be your master, and in this world and in hell, right? And my understanding of hell, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, honestly. Like, that's word, Look, now 2 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, in verses 3 through 5, it says, look, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh, right? We're in the flesh, but again, is Ephesians 6 and 12 mentions, right, that our battle is not with the flesh and the blood. It might be within ourselves, right? That's really our worst enemy, right? Trying to overcome some of our lust and things, but we're going to find out how to do that, a little bit later. We're going to find that out. But we're not warring after the flesh. And especially, look, us being Israelites, people so meek, and we don't void of resources, power, strength, and weapons of carnal warfare. It's not our place to be given unto those things to do battle like that, right? So, and God has all these promises for our people that we would come out on top after the great tribulation, after the world is all destroyed, right? And so, how's that gonna manifest, right? When all these people have nukes and armies and all this stuff, right? But look, the God of heaven and earth is great, and things are impossible for man, but with the Father Ahia, nothing's impossible, right? So we got to understand that and put our faith and trust in him and get some wisdom and knowledge about us, right? 2 Corinthians 10, 3 through 5 says, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Ahia to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of Ahia, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. All right. So we're here to knock down, to destroy strongholds. Anything that might have a stronghold over us or in the world is done through prayer and fasting. But we're going to get more into that, as I say, right? Every high thing that's going to exalt itself, right? And what did Satan say, right? That he's going to exalt his throne above God's, right? Now, we're not here for that. So, look, to defeat him and knock down all those vain imaginations and any vain imaginations that exist within ourselves or people around us, this word is going to be what's going to do that, right? So we're casting down all imaginations and vanity, right? And bringing everything, all our thoughts into subjection of Christ, right? Because he's the goal. He's our mediator, right? And we need to be like him in order to sustain in this world and to endure this world, right? Because it's getting tougher. Why? Because Job 9:24 tells us that the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he, right? The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So let's elaborate on that a little bit more. Let's go to Genesis 6, right? And just to show that, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, Satan's hands and all his armies. Remember, maybe you don't if you've never read these stories or read the Bible, but in Matthew and Luke, Christ, after he fasted for 40 days, right, he's in the wilderness and he's tempted by Satan. Satan comes to him, right, and he says, look out over the world, all this is mine to give you, right? He was saying like this, I own everything here, right? And it was his to give Christ as a temptation, which Christ refused, right? And that just goes to show you, like, this world is Satan's world. Satan is the god of this world, right? But anyways, let's go to chapter. So look, when we're blessed with things, we gotta really know where it's coming from, right? Especially if we're doing wicked things in the earth and we're getting riches that are gotten through evil, and you're saying God's blessing me or this and that, like which God, right? Anyways, Genesis 6, we're going to start at the first verse. Right? We need to look closely at this, right? Because again, I want to identify for you what demons are, where they come from, and their origin, how they move on the earth, and how to defeat them, right? And stave them off of our own selves, off of our temples, off of our homes, off our friends and families, right? So look, Genesis 6, 1 through 4. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Ahiah saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Most High and the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, right? There were giants in the earth in those days, right? And also after that. Now pay close attention to these lines, right? The second verse. The sons of God, right? The angels saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives. The fourth verse. There were giants in the earth. The giants came through, they were conceived by these fallen angels coming down to earth and laying with the daughters of men, right? And then they brought forth giants from that union, right? Now when the son, and they survived the flood, right? So most of them were destroyed, but they survived, right? There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Right? Now you hear lots of stories, right? Giant men, Hercules, all this type of stuff. Well, let's continue. Verse 5, Genesis 6. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Right? Now, we see in the canonical Bible, as we know it, that angels came down, laid with the daughters of men, and from that union, the illegal union, was born giants, right? So it's a fact that giants walked the earth, right? Now, the next record that we're going into is the book of Enoch. And then we're going to go into chapter 6, right? And if anybody's confused as to the legitimacy about the book of Enoch in Jude, or if your pastor's trying to hide it from you, because a lot of these people, like I said, powers, principalities, spiritual wickedness in high places, right? A lot of these people are paid to hide this information from us. Why? Because wisdom and knowledge will be the stability of our time unto salvation, right? So a lot of these people have a covenant with hell and death and Satan to thwart our contact with the Bible and our understanding of it, so that we, as people of the earth, don't galvanize against these wicked people and Satans that move throughout the earth, right? So this information is hid from a lot of people. But the book of Jude in your canonical Bible, which is like toward the back, right? You'll find in Jude 1 and 6, he quotes the very first chapter of Enoch. So let's go ahead and get that for edification's sake, right? So boom, boom, we're going to the book of Jude. Right? So, and it says, And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved into everlasting change. And oh no, pardon me. I'm sorry, it's Jude 1 and 14. Starting at 1 and 14. 15 is quoted in the book, verbatim from the book of Enoch, right? But let's start at 14. And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints. 15. To execute judgment upon all, to convince all that are ungodly among them of their ungodly deeds which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. All right, and now just to show you real quick, if you go to Enoch 1 and 15, it's the same thing. So if you get yourself a book of Enoch, this one I have here, all right, Enoch, Jubilee, and Jashers, holds a lot of extra biblical texts and parts of the Bible that were always part of the Bible that they took out, as I say, to hide this information, right? And even the oldest Bibles, like the Ethiopian Bible, contain, this is one, right? So it started at Enoch, the first chapter, the 15th verse, and it says, And behold, he cometh with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment upon all, and to destroy all the ungodly, and to convict all flesh of the works of their ungodliness which they have ungodly committed, and all of the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. Right? So that there verifies for us that the book of Enoch, among other records, that this is a true and accurate record, right? And Enoch is written in the book of Genesis as well. There's only one line about him. It says that he was a man that didn't die, right? He was a righteous man and lives. So look, we're going to Enoch 6. And we're going to look at the origin of this story that was in Genesis 6, right? About angels coming down to the earth and laying with women, right? Enoch chapter 6 and 1. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters, and the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said one to another, Let us choose wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Samjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath and bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then sware they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200, who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these are the names of their leaders. I'm not even going to read that. You could read that, right? And these are the chiefs of tens, right? Now, we're going to Enoch 15, right? So we now know and understand that 200 angels, right, came down on Mount Hermon, which is in Turkey, and swore an oath by mutual imprecation, right? Mutual imprecations means mutual curses. So they knew that what they were doing was sinful, wrong, and evil, but they all, went in with each other and said, we're all going to share this burden of curses and potential damnation for what we're about to do, right? Under God's heaven, right? So 200 of them came down on the mountain and swore to do thus. Now, we go to Enoch 15. And we're going to start at the first verse. And again, if you don't have a copy of this, you can always look it up online, right? And he answered and said to me, and I heard his voice, Fear not, Enoch, thou righteous man and scribe of righteousness. Approach hither and hear my voice, and go. Say to the watchers of heaven who have sent thee to intercede for them, You should intercede for men and not men for you. Wherefore have ye left the high, holy, and eternal heaven, and lain with women, and defiled yourselves with the daughters of men, and taken to yourselves wives, and done like the children of earth, and begotten giants as your sons? And though you were holy, spiritual, living the eternal life, you have defiled yourselves with the blood of women, and have begotten children with the blood of flesh. And as the children of men have lusted after flesh in blood, as those also do who die and perish. Therefore have I given them wives also, that they might impregnate them and beget children by them, that thus nothing might be wanting to them on earth. But you were formerly spiritual, living the eternal life and immortal for all generations of the world. And therefore I have not appointed wives for you, for as for the spiritual ones of heaven, in heaven is their dwelling. And now, this is verse 7, and now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Right? So hear and understand that the giants are produced from that union, and they live on the earth. Right? Even their spirits still abide here. And on the earth shall be their dwelling. Verse 8. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies. Demons. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they were born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. As for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their dwelling. But as for the spirits of the earth, which were born upon the earth, on the earth shall be their dwelling. And this is how they operate now. Now, this is key and imperative. So, please, pay close attention. Write this down. Do whatever you have to. And the spirits of the giants do what? What do they do? The spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. All right? They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. Right? They hunger and thirst. Right? Insatiable. They get into people, and because they're without bodies or haven't been able to abide in a body for a long time, they seek to fill themselves with all manner of food and delicacies, especially things that are unlawful and that are a defilement to your temple, so that they can have a stronghold there, right? So they feast and dine continually on unlawful things, pork, shrimp, ham, lobster, and things that hurt your health, that give them a space to rule in your temple, right? That's why you'll see a lot of people have no self-control when it comes to meat and drink, or these demonic forces get the best of them, and people have all manner of eating disorders, or they just lack any self-control at all, because these things are insatiable and hunger and thirst continually, right? Right? And they cause offenses, right? Rifts, because they're doing battle and afflicting people and oppressing people and making people lash out, and everything is just taken to the next level, right? When these things are in these people. And these spirits shall rise, and this is verse 11, and these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them. Right? Right? That's just a little idea right now. Another book that I want to introduce to you, which is here again, is the book of Jubilees, right? And if you have, now the Bible was always included what is called the Apocrypha, or the hidden books, and in it, in 2nd Ezra chapter 14, verses 1 through 6, it talks about the Jubilees, right? The book of Jubilees, right? Now, the Apocrypha was taken out in 1885, right? Again, by these people who would seek to hide this type of information from you, right? It was taken out in 1885, but if you have yourself a 1611, a new revised standard version, or things like that, you could find it in there. Or you can buy an Apocrypha from the internet, and you could see this information there, right? But the Jubilees, the book of Jubilees, was written at the same time. Moses wrote many other books when he went into the mountain and spent 40 days and 40 nights with the Most High, right? And the Most High relayed to him all types of information. And the book of Jubilees is also known as the division of days, where the Most High breaks down from the beginning of time to the end of time what would occur, especially as it pertained to the children of Israel, right? Their continual rising and falling and going into these different captivities, right? And he told Moses everything pretty much, right? So in your canonical Bible, in 2nd Esdras, at the 14th chapter, right, starting at the first verse, it says thus, it says, and it came to pass upon the third day, I sat under an oak, and behold, there came a voice out of a bush over against me, and said, Esdras, Esdras. Verse 2, and I said, Here I am, Lord, and I stood up upon my feet. 3, then said he unto me, In the bush I did manifestly reveal myself unto Moses, and talked with him, when my people served in Egypt. 4, and I sent him and led my people out of Egypt, and brought him up to the mountain, of where I held him by me a long season. Verse 5, and told him many wondrous things, and shewed him the secrets of the times, the book of Jubilees, the vision of days, and the end, and commanded him, saying, at verse 6, these words shalt thou declare, and these shalt thou hide, right? So, we're going into the book of Jubilees at the 10th chapter, and we're going to start it at, we'll start at the first verse. And it reads, and in the third week of this Jubilee, the unclean demons began to lead astray the children of the sons of Noah, right? And now where did the demons come from? We just read it. They proceed out of the spirits of the bodies of the giants, right? So after the flood had occurred, these evil spirits are now on earth moving around, and they're afflicting Noah's sons, right? And all the people. Begin to lead astray the children of the sons of Noah, and to make to err and destroy them. And the sons of Noah came to Noah their father, and they told him concerning the demons which were leading astray and blinding and slaying his sons. And he prayed before the Lord his God, and said, God of the spirits of all flesh, who has shown mercy unto me, and has saved me and my sons from the waters of the flood, and has not caused me to perish as thou didst the sons of perdition. For thy grace hath been great towards me, and great hath been thy mercy to my soul. Let thy grace be lifted up upon my sons, and let not wicked spirits rule over them, lest they should destroy them from the earth. But do thou bless me and my sons, that we may increase and multiply and replenish the earth. And thou knowest how thy watchers, the fathers of these spirits, acted in my day. And as for these spirits which are living, imprison them and hold them fast in the place of condemnation, and let them not bring destruction on the sons of thy servant, my God. For these are malignant and created in order to destroy. And let them not rule over the spirits of the living, for thou alone canst exercise dominion over them. And let them not have power over the sons of the righteous from henceforth and forevermore. And the Lord our God bade us to bind all. And the chief of the spirits, Mastema, another word for devil, came and said, now this is Satan going to speak with the Father, right? Said, Lord, Creator, let some of them remain before me, and let them hearken to my voice, and do all that I shall say unto them. For if some of them are not left to me, I shall not be able to execute the power of my will on the sons of men. For these are for corruption and leading astray before my judgment. For great is the wickedness of the sons of men. Right? So Satan here is pleading with the Almighty to let him keep a part of these demons, these evil spirits that are on the earth, to do his will, which will ultimately accomplish God's will, right? Because after man's fall, I mean, it's really a sifting that's occurring, right? To see who's going to be worthy at the end of this world to be a part of the Father's kingdom, right? And so it's a trial by fire. I mean, life is tough, and who's really going to abide with the Father, and right? So everything really works to God's will and purpose, right? But for creating things, right? And at verse 9, picking up at verse 9, and he said, let the 10th part of them remain before him, and let 9 parts descend in the place of condemnation. Right? So 1/10 of those demonic spirits were allowed to stay on the earth. But if you know anything about CERN and the Hadron Colliders, and I believe that what they're doing there is they're opening portals to allow these spirits to these spirits and fallen angels entrance into our realm, right? To leave the place of condemnation, right? Second Baruch, the book of Second Baruch, in the 10th chapter, if I'm not mistaken, where it talks about the different parts of the times and the separations. It says that after a while, specters and shittims would increase on the earth, or ghosts and demons, right? And it's the same in the 48th chapter. It says that, right? And it gives a list of, all these wicked things that would occur in different parts of time, but closer to the end, they would all be going on the earth at the same time, and it would just be super ramped up, right? So I feel like even more are here than that original 1/10, right? Now, if you want to read more about this, 40 days, right? And it's a shame I don't have the time today. I have to get going here soon. Please read the book of Jasher, 82, starting at the 26th verse, and you can see Moses in Sinai for 40 days, right? And so, look, another book that I want to bring out to you and show you, right? I got to keep it concise, but I hope that you're taking notes and you can go back or buy some of these books and avail yourself of the teachings that are in them, right? Now, in this book, Old Testament Pseudegrapha, the R.H. Charles version, you'll find a book called The Testament of Solomon, where it tells you, it's a Solomon's testament about how he built the temple for the Father, right? And he did it with the help of God. He was given a ring by an angel, right? Which with that ring he was able to control demonic forces, right? And the powers. And with that ring he was able to summon them before him, inquire of them, their purpose and their function in the earth, and how they disrupt men and destroy them and things like this. And then he would give them a task to do and make them do it, right? So what's the guy's name? R.R. Tolkien. He was a theologian, right? So look, these people have had access to our records and know and understand very intimately that the stuff is true and real, and they build little fairy tales, right, based around this stuff, right? You remember Lord of the Rings? The man had a ring and brought everything into subjection, more especially like all these evil forces, right? He had this ring and was able to control everything, yada yada. Now this in Testament of Solomon. I'd say if you're a frail spirit, weak spirit, you shouldn't get into it. I've heard testimonies of people being attacked, but I think that's after reading this. But that's only because I feel like they didn't fear the Father enough, and they were afraid of the things that they're reading, because they understood that these things exist in the ether, right? And that they surround us and move around us and seek to destroy us, frankly, right? So if you have weak constitution of spirit, then please don't read this, and especially don't read any of the names, because, right, the power of invocation, right? We got to understand that. That's why the Father says don't use his name in vain. And when we do ask him for things, we call him by name, so that we can kind of invoke and ask of his great grandiose name, what he would permit according to his will, right? And ask him to bless us, right? So you just don't want to be yelling all these different things in the air, right? But in it, as I said, Solomon learns the function and the power of these different entities, right? And just to give you a little summarization of some that he brings before him, right? He interrogates them, right? And they say that they're responsible for all types of immoral deeds, pains and diseases, pains in your body, diseases, and if we went down a little further in Jubilees 10, Noah was given a book of cures, because they understood that disease comes from demons, really, all manner of it, and from not listening to the Father. You disobey his commandments, and then you have to fall into the hand of a physician, right? Because these spirits are allowed to gain entrance, and then they start attacking you and diminishing your body, right? And then, like it says in the book of Ecclesiasticus, which is in the Apocrypha, right, a wisdom book of Solomon, it says, let whoever sins before his creator, let him fall into the hand of the physician, right? So here they're responsible for all types of pains and diseases, and they're confessing these things to him, and he learns by how they're thwarted and what power and what thing to do, right? Incantation or whatever. So we know that these things aren't necessary to understand these incantations and all this stuff, because look, Christ is our mediator, protector, and the people that fear the Father, he puts a hedge of angels around them and doesn't let hurt, harm come to them, right? You just have to be steadfast and endure to the end, and not transgress the word, right? So, but this is even the primal origin of witchcraft and a lot of things, right? But a lot of that is just Solomon's wisdom perverted, because you got to know and understand that Satan has lost the power really to be creative, and he doesn't even have any creative power, right? That's all in the Father's hand, right? So everything that he does is just an inversion of the Father, right? And he tries to flip things and pervert things, right? So all this witchcraft and different weirdo rituals are really come from like a magic that Solomon learned by the angels and by the Father, right? So, but not the Father, like the means to defeat these things, right? Like he knew and understood, right, how to combat these forces, right? So, right. So, of course, these demons go on to identify themselves, right, by their names in the Testament of Solomon. They state how they involve themselves in man's lives and get them to commit deeds that are contrary to righteousness, to law following, right? And a couple examples, right? Some strangle people at birth. Some compel people to be involve themselves in pedophilia. Some to lust, spread wickedness between marriages, make women go crazy through astrology. People commit murders through tyrants, They use people in high places to do all types of things. They make holy men want to be involved in sodomy. And they incite jealousy, murder, cause wars, divisions, like all the things that we read in Enoch 15, right? Disrupt households and marriages, right? So when these things are happening, we got to understand, like, spirit has entered in us or amongst us and is trying to, cause strife and division, right? Strangles infants when they're born, right? Wraps around the umbilical cord, around the neck, inflames limbs, feet, gives sores, makes fetuses blind, dumb, causes seizures, strangles newborns, injures eyes, condemns the mouth, creates pain, destroys minds, causes migraines, copulates with women through the buttocks. People that are obsessed with sodomy, right? And they have to defile all these women by it. Causes ships to capsize, drown men, seasickness, right? There's some that guard watch over tombs and kill people that get too close, right? Why do you think people are so afraid innately to go next to tombs, right, at night and things? Because these spirits and forces exist there, right? And that's why you find a lot of Catholic churches, right, and other churches will have graveyards and grave sites on the premises of the church. Because while they're misleading people, they also have this stuff going on. Okay, now the spirits also relate to Solomon after they give him a prophecy, right, that his son would pass, and he asked them how he came to know that information. They relate to him that falling stars, shooting stars, and things like that we see are really just fallen angels. They're spirits that are exhausted, right? So they jump, they shoot up as high as they can toward the throne of God, and they're able to hear the Most High's words as he's prophesying and giving out orders to his angels, right? So they come down and just relay this information to mankind and keep it amongst themselves to to do whatever they will with, right? Right, so they're able to hear the Most High's conversations before falling back down to the earth, right? One spirit also relays that, and I believe it was one of the sons of Satan said that he lives in the Red Sea, right? And Janus and Jambres, the two magicians who fought against Moses, and that spirit was the one who hardened Pharaoh's heart, right? It wasn't the father who did it. That spirit entered into Pharaoh and overthrew his conscience and his mind and caused his heart to be hardened, right? And that's in Testament of Solomon 25, which let's go ahead and read that, right? And the purpose of me highlighting this stuff is so that you can understand, right, that these forces and spirits and demons move amongst us, and they can hold sway and power if we're not defending our temples and our minds and spirits from their influence, right? So that's why, right, we have to bring every thought into subjection of Christ, right? We have to really live and walk and move in the spirit, right? Worship the Father in truth and spirit, because it's going to keep us aloof from the ways of the world and from these demonic forces being able to get the best of us, right? It could even be in a moment of distemper, right? We let anger flare up in us, and then we're stuck and walking in it, and then those spirits will have power over us to exercise their will, right? Through our little falls and slips and lack of understanding on how to move amongst each other and in this world, right? So look, this is the Testament of Solomon, starting at the 25th chapter, the 3rd verse. It'll start at the 2nd verse. And it said, "But the demon said, I, King Solomon, and am called," I'm not going to say the name, "and once I sat in the first heaven, whose name is blank. Therefore I am hostile, winged demon with one wing, plotting against every wind under the heavens. I was present at the time when Moses appeared before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, hardening his heart. I am the one who Janus and Jambres, those who opposed Moses in Egypt, called to their aid. I am the adversary of Moses in performing wonders and signs. So let's go. Let's continue a little bit. Verse 5, I therefore said to him, how is it that ye are found in the Red Sea? He responded, during the time of the exodus of the sons of Israel, I gave Pharaoh pangs of anxiety and hardened the heart of him, as well as of his subordinates. I caused him to pursue closely after the sons of Israel, and Pharaoh followed with me, and so did all the Egyptians. I was there at the time, and we followed together. We all approached the Red Sea. Then it happened that at the time when the sons of Israel crossed over, the water turned back upon us and covered over the company of the Egyptians. I was to be found there. I too was engulfed by the water, and I remained in the sea, being held down there by the pillar until something arrived. Next, Solomon, adjured him to hold up the pillar until the end. Then, under the direction of God, I adorned the temple of God in total beauty, and I was rejoicing and praising God, right? So again, that just goes to show you that these demons were used in the construction, right? Now look, you go back to the book of Jubilees in the 48th chapter, right? We can see this story that demon of the Red Sea is relating to us, right? And it's also written in the book of Jubilees, right? Starting at the 9th verse, it says, and the prince of the Mastema, the devils, stood up against thee, and sought to cast thee into the hands of Pharaoh. And he helped the Egyptian sorcerers, and they stood up and wrought before thee. The evils indeed were permitted them to work, but the remedies we did not allow to be wrought in their hands. Right, verse 11. And the Lord smote them with malignant ulcers, and they were not able to stand, for we destroyed them so that they could not perform a single sign. And notwithstanding all these signs and wonders, the prince of the Mastema was not put to shame, because he took courage and cried to the Egyptians to pursue after thee with all the powers of the Egyptians, right? So we just read in Testament of Solomon that that spirit was commanding the Pharaoh and all his soldiers to pursue the children of Israel, right? And now look here, right? Verse 12. Started in the middle. Mastema was not put to shame, because he took courage and cried to the Egyptians to pursue after thee with all the powers of the Egyptians, with their chariots and with their horses, and with all the hosts of the peoples of Egypt. And I stood between the Egyptians and Israel, and we delivered Israel out of his hand, and out of the hand of his people. And the Lord brought them through the midst of the sea, as if it were dry land. And all the peoples whom he brought to pursue after Israel, the Lord our God cast them into the midst of the sea, into the depths of the abyss beneath the children of Israel, even as the people of Egypt had cast their children into the river. He took vengeance on 100,000, 1,000,000 of them, and 1,000 strong and energetic men were destroyed on account of one suckling of the children of thy people, which they had thrown into the river. And on the 14th day, and on the 15th, and on the 16th, and on the 17th, and on the 18th, the prince of the Mastema was bound and imprisoned behind the children of Israel, that he might not accuse them. And on the 19th we let them loose, that they might help the Egyptians and pursue the children of Israel. And he hardened their hearts and made them stubborn. And the device was devised by the Lord our God, that he might smite the Egyptians and cast them into the sea. All right. So we find that spirit, right, hardened their hearts and compelled them to do wicked things, right? their God, where they drew their strength from, and they hearken unto an evil spirit. Right now, we can see more proof of the Testament of Solomon's validity. For example, in the book of Josephus, in the Complete Works, in the Antiquities of the Jews section, in the 8th book, in the 2nd chapter, starting at the 5th paragraph, but the 5th paragraph, but you go to, it talks about how Solomon, right, had the knowledge of these demons and all of these things, right? So let me just read a short bit of it, right? And this is the Antiquities of the Jews on Solomon, concerning his wisdom and riches, and concerning what he obtained from Hiram, right? So at the 40, excuse me, at the 45th paragraph, it says, God also enabled him to learn that skill which expels demons, which is a science useful and sanative to men. He composed such incantations also by which distempers are alleviated, and he left behind him the manner of using exorcisms by which they drive away demons so that they never return. And this method of cure is of great force unto this day. For I have seen, now this is a historical document, right? For I have seen a certain man of mine own country, whose name was Eleazar, releasing people that were demoniacal in the presence of Vespasian and his sons and his captains and the whole multitude of his soldiers. The manner of the cure was this. He put a ring, right? He put a ring that had a root of one of those sorts mentioned by Solomon to the nostrils of the demoniac, after which he drew out the demon through his nostrils, and when the man fell down immediately, he abjured him to return into him no more, making still mention of Solomon, in reciting the incantations which he composed. And when Eleazar would persuade and demonstrate to the spectators that he had such a power, he set a little way off a cup or basin full of water, and commanded the demon as he went out of the man to overturn it, and thereby to let the spectators know that he had left the man. And when this was done, the skill and wisdom of Solomon was shown very manifestly, for which reason it is that all men may know the vastness of Solomon's abilities, and how he was beloved of God, and that the extraordinary virtues of every kind with which this king was endowed may not be unknown to any people under the sun. For this reason I say it is that we have proceeded to speak so largely of these matters, right? Now, again, like you just read, Eleazar, in the time of Vespasian, was casting out demons from the men, right? And he was doing so with the knowledge that he acquired from Solomon, right? And like Josephus said, it's prudent that all men know and understand this information, so as to have peace in their lives, right? Now, these same instances that are written in the Testament of Solomon are also written in the Quran, right? Different parts of the Quran, because at one point in the Testament of Solomon, he is a king from Arabia asked for his help, right, dealing with some type of wind demon, right? And also says this is how he used to get around, right? Solomon used to be able to control the wind and things like this, right? You could read this story in the Quran about how he got rid of the wind demon, and how in the same account is in the Testament of Solomon, right? So I'll just read a little brief portion from the Quran, right? Excuse me 1 second here. So it says, and for Solomon We subjected the wind. Its morning course was a month's journey, and its evening course was a month's journey. We made a fount of molten copper flow for him, and we placed it at his service. Some of the jinn, right, as demons, as they know it, who would work for him by the permission of his Lord, and if any of them swerved from our command, we would make him taste the punishment of the blaze. Right? So they had all these demons executing their work and will, and they would punish them if they got out of line, just like in the Testament of Solomon. He was doing the same thing. He commanded them to be whipped, smoked across the face, and things like this, right, for any insolence. As a matter of fact, the jinn or devils were enslaved and would work for Solomon. Now, this is a record from the Quran, right? They built for him as many temples as he wished, and figures, basins like cisterns, and cauldrons fixed in the ground. O house of David, act thankfully, and few of my servants are grateful. Right? So look, all the scriptures I elaborated before, as it concerns these demons, right? It's just to show that, look, they're here, and the mystery of iniquity doth already work, like it says in 2 Thessalonians 2:7, right? And let's read it. It says, "For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let." Right? You're going to let these things have mastery and bear rule over your mind and your temple and disquieted space, right? That's why everything these days is about mental health, because these demons hold sway over people, right? And people are suffering in their mind and their spirit, and they're lunatic, right? Like we're going to read a few examples when Christ was healing and people and pulling demons out of people. They were all crazy and were hurting themselves and were stricken with anguish and mental, they were hurting in all manner, physical, mental, spiritual, until they were released from them and they were completely at peace and in their right mind and temperate and disciplined, right? And then he would heal them, right, by pulling these demons out, right? So look, it's not like I mentioned earlier. Hollywood's got us tricked into thinking, because these things are so subtle, they don't want to be found out so that they can abide in your temple and work the mischief and trouble and the oppression that they've set out to do against the sons of men, right? So they try to be real subtle as possible. So if you were spinning on the roof, right, with your neck spinning around and speaking in a different voice, then it would be too easy for them, right? So they move real subtly. But say you rid yourself of them, and then they come back, like we're going to read in the scriptures, and then they come back stronger with 7 more spirits stronger than themselves, then yeah, maybe they might start to exhibit that power more openly, right? Like we're going to read in a few instances in the New Testament, right? But let's go ahead and get that, right? So let's go ahead to Matthew, the 17th verse. The 17th chapter, starting at the 14th verse. Right? And let's read together. This is Matthew 17 at the 14th verse. "And when they were come to the multitude, there came to him a certain man, kneeling down to him, and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is lunatic and sore vexed." That lunatic means possessed with many devils. "For oft times he falleth into the fire, and oft times in the water." All right, he hurts himself by another man, by one man or the other, right? A lot of people that are suffering from these demonic forces and oppression in possession, they'll a lot of times they'll burn themselves, cut themselves, try to drown themselves, or just do all types of injurious things to their own person and vessel, right? And just act crazy. They lash out, and they're insatiable, right? "And I brought him to thy disciples, and they could not cure him. Then Yeshua answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him hither to me. And Yeshua rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Then came the disciples to Yeshua apart and said, Why could not we cast him out? And Yeshua said unto them, at verse 20, Because of your unbelief. For verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, Remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. Verse 21, listen very carefully. Now this is an instruction from Christ, the King, Redeemer, and Savior of Israel and all the contrite in the world, right? Who'd have the mind and the spirit to follow after him, right? Because we know what? That he is the truth. He's the way and he's the life. And he's given us a commandment, like this is how we defeat them. At verse 21. Howbeit, this kind goeth not out, but by prayer and fasting, right? So dedicate, if you feel afflicted in your mind, your body, spirit, you must dedicate to the Father a fast and ask him to expel this demon from you, right? Because why? They hunger and thirst, right? So if you empty your vessel and you starve them of everything that they're seeking after, and commit yourself to the Father and ask that he alleviate that burden or that demonic force from your temple, then it will be gone from you, right? And Christ said that, howbeit, some go not out, right? But by prayer and fasting. But you have to have a steadfast belief and faith, right? As well, that the Father will heal you, right? Now look, let's see another example. Luke 11, right? Starting at the 24th verse. Let's read again another instance. This Luke 11, starting at the 24th verse. It says, When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest and finding none. Right? So this is what happens after you fast and pray, right? The spirit leaves, and he's looking for a home, right? Seeking rest and finding none, he saith, I will return unto my house whence I came out. He's going back to you. And when he cometh, he findeth it's swept and garnished, right? It's cleaned up. You clean up your temple. You stop smoking. You stop drinking. You stop eating fish, eating shrimp, crab, lobster, pork, bats, and whatever other thing that is forbidden by the law of the Most High God, Ahaya, and that is a defilement to your temple, and that's destructive, which invites these spirits into you, right? Then you clean yourself up, clean your act up, and you rid the spirit of you, and it comes back to see what you're up to. It won't have a place because it can't enter, because now your temple is an abode for the Almighty Father, right? Now he lives there, right? Know ye not that your temple is the temple of God, right? And he'll destroy anyone who defiles it, as the scripture says in Corinthians, right? So, then goeth he, and it says 25, verse 25, this is Luke 11 and 25, and when he cometh, he findeth it swept and garnished. 26, then goeth he and taketh to him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. Right, so he goes to get he goes to all his buddies and consults with all these other people that are above him, right? Then goeth he and taketh to him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there, and the last state of that man is worse than the first, right? So they'll have a stronger hold over you, right? If you slip backwards, right? Because like the seed, the seeds in Matthew 13, right? Say something happened to you. You're not founded on good ground, right? So you read and understand this. You exercise yourself of these demons by the grace of the Most High, right? And then something happened to you, right? And then you go backwards and you're like, oh man, well, or you get stressed out and then you start defiling your temple again, right? These demons will spy that, and then 7 more will come to you, and then the stronghold they have on you will be greater, next time, right? Until Most High willing, you can shake them off again, right? So that's why we have to stay aloof of the world and walk in ways of righteousness, right? But even still, I forbid that this happened to you. But if it does, then what? Now we understand, right? And by the grace of the Most High, these things happen. I mean, it breeds experience, right? So get yourself up and dust yourself off and fast and pray again, right? And as long as you got breath in your lungs, I mean, you have a chance, right, to enter into the kingdom of the Most High if you will and permit it, right? So look, another instance that I want you to all recognize. Look, and this is what's Christ doing here. He's given us the keys to combat these demonic forces, and he's showing us, right, in these stories that they exist among us, right? Like we read, the evil spirits on earth shall be their dwelling, is what the Father said. So they're moving around, seeking whom they may destroy, right? And Christ gave us the tools: prayer, fasting, right? Because this is really what is afflicting people, this mental illness or whatever, because people don't have the knowledge and the wisdom of God and how to live and thwart in these things, right? So, it's imperative. So let's go to Mark 5 now. Right? We're in the book of Mark, chapter 5. We're going to start at verse 2. And we're going to read to 16, right? And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs, right? Out of the tombs, what do we see in the Testament of Solomon, right? That spirits, more particularly Nephilim spirits, it says in the Testament of Solomon, inhabit the tombs, right? Evil spirits, right? So when Christ came out of the ship, a man started running to him that was abiding in the tombs, right, where evil spirits inhabit. And he said what? And so in verse 2, and when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him. Extra strength. These things jump in you. You might possess their strength, right? And no man could bind him, no, not with chains. Verse 4, because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs. He's in the mountains, right? So he's in the tombs, right? So he's far off. People that are usually afflicted by demonic possession or forces, right? They usually isolate themselves, right? And or the spirit will cause them to isolate themselves so that people can't interfere with the spirit, destroying them and eventually sending them to hell, right? So they separate so that nobody can come in and try to reclaim them for the Father and restore them to their right mind. You know what I'm saying? So these are all markers as well of people that are afflicted, right? They harm themselves, they isolate themselves, they're insatiable, and they stir up trouble, strife, and they're easily offended, right? And they can't handle the word by any means, right? That's another marker. Or any righteous music or anything, or certain spirits. If the Holy Spirit is on somebody and somebody else enters the room, if the Holy Spirit is on somebody and somebody else is demonically afflicted, they'll leave quickly, or they just can't stand the sight of the person or anything, because the demon recognizes before the person who this person is, right? Or what, or this they could see, right? So sometimes people don't always hate you, right? The spirit that has afflicted them hates you, you know what I'm saying? And hates the spirit that's in you. So these are all markers of demonic possession, all right? So we got to put away the notion that Hollywood has tricked us with about, people throwing up from hanging on the roof or something, right? Craziness, right? So verse 5, Mark 5:5, and always night and day he was in the mountains, isolated, and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones, right? You see people cut themselves, right? Cut their arms, their forearms, their legs, right? People take knives to themselves because they think it makes them feel better, right? They're compelled by demonic forces to do this, right? To harm themselves. And that's another marker, right? But when he saw Yeshua afar off, he ran and worshipped him and cried with a loud voice and said, "What have I to do with thee, Yeshua, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not." For he said unto him, come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. He just spoke a word, right? And he asked him, "What is thy name?" And he answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. Now, Legion refers to a Roman cavalry. I think it's like a band of like, was it 4,000 to 8,000 soldiers, something like that. I don't know, Google it. But anyways, this man is possessed with many demons, right? And in verse 9 he says, at verse 10, and he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. Now there was there not, verse 11, now there was there nigh unto the mountains a great herd of swine feeding, and all the devils besought him, saying, "Send us into the swine, that we may enter into them." And forthwith Yeshua gave them leave, and the unclean spirits went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000, and were choked in the sea. And they that fed the swine fled and told it in the city and in the country, and they went out to see what it was that was done. And they came to Yeshua, and see him that was possessed with the devil, and had the legion, sitting and clothed in his right mind, and they were afraid. Right now, an important point to point out here, right? They wanted to go into the swine because the swine are unclean animals, and in the law it's forbidden that we eat and touch them. Eat or even touch their carcass or anything, right? This is why they wanted to go in there, because they're so unclean. I mean, their own offspring could drop and die right next to them, and they're gonna pick them up and feast on them. They eat feces, they don't sweat, and they're riddled with all manner of disease and parasites, right? So the demons inhabit unclean temples and unclean places, right? And for a long time, only Gentiles, right, would eat things like this, because poor pigs were always on the outside of cities, villages, and establishments, right? Because they're living garbage disposals. They eat everything, so they were on the outside of the city to eat all the leftovers, all the feces, whatever, and that's where they would abide. So imagine actually taking something like this, but we're so far removed from the process of killing and eating animals that we wouldn't see and understand it, right? But that we don't see it, so we can't understand it, don't understand it. But these things are horrendous, and it's pretty savage to kill and eat something like that, that's rolling around in filth, and to cook it and eat it. It's absolutely horrendous, right? And you defile your temple, right? So that's why they wanted to be sent into to abide in something, right? Especially a place of uncleanness, right? So look, with that, I'm going to bid you all peace, right? And hope that this information that I brought forth by the grace of the Most High will lighten your spirit, and the truth, I hope, will set you free, and that you would use it to be a light to others, and pass this information along so that others may escape from their own demonic affliction or possession, right? So prayer and fasting wisdom and knowledge are going to sustain us, right? And we need to know our enemy to be able to combat them effectively, right? And they move everywhere in the sea, land, air, earth, and they're seeking to oppress, afflict, destroy, cause trouble, right? So we have to put on the whole armor of God, right? So that we can defend and fight against them, right? So, bid y'all peace, and until next time, shalom.